Hi, everyone. I'm Bob Ruggiero, Vice President of Communications for Quilts Incorporated, and we're here with another in the series of interviews with our 2023 Festival Judged Show winners. And today we've got the Grace Company Master Award for Traditional Artistry. That is a $5,000 prize sponsored by the Grace Company. The winner this year was Kathy Wylie, and the quilt is Beauty in the Broken, which you can see behind both of us right now. It measures 71 inches by 71 inches. I'm going to go ahead and read Kathy's statement. She says, in the same way that stars can only be seen at night, there is beauty that is only experienced in hardship. This quilt was inspired by those profound moments of love amidst our suffering, laughter in our sorrow, hope in our despair, the beauty in the broken. And it's an original design. So welcome, Kathy.
Thanks, Bob.
So Kathy, that's a very kind of heavy statement here. So can we expand a little bit about that and how it relates particularly to this artwork?
Yeah, it is a more difficult concept perhaps to explain, but I think we can all relate to going through hard times in our lives. And I guess I just noticed during one particularly hard time in my life that there were these really precious moments that we were experiencing that we were only experiencing because we were going through that hard time. And, you just think about like a really simple example of, just somebody sending you flowers. Like they wouldn't send you flowers if you weren't going through something. So, I mean, that's just a simple example, but that was just really resonating with me. And this idea of beauty in the broken and how could that be a quilt. And so I set out basically to make an applique quilt with holes in it. And what you probably can't tell on video, but you'll have to come and see it in person, is there's no black in this quilt. So everywhere that you see black, you are looking through the holes and you're seeing the black background, or the black, not background, but curtain in behind it kind of thing. So the holes in the quilt were to represent the broken part of the experience, and the applique meant to be the beauty, so the beauty in the broken. So that's kind of how this quilt came to be.
Wow, that's amazing. Let's step back in the quilting time machine a little bit and tell me a little bit about how you first got interested in quilting, and then what kind of had you make the leap from just being interested in it to wanting to make your own quilts.
Well, I have been sewing since I was 10 years old. So I have a very long background with a needle in my hand and embroidery and really any kind of needle art was very interesting to me, even as a teenager and as a young mom. I was doing home deck. So it wasn't until my second child was born, he was 1 year old, a friend asked me to take a quilting class with her. And I just looked at it as another thing I could sew, and also nights out with my away from my two little babies. So I just kind of went with her on a bit of a whim, and it was absolute love at first sight. Like I got the quilting bug from night one and really never looked back. It was just like everything that I enjoyed coming together into one art form. So I just couldn't get enough. I mean, it's just started, couldn't learn enough, take enough classes, read enough books, read enough magazines, just kept going. And the best part was kind of discovering that, oh, you could actually, make a career out of this. So, I kind of set my
Imagine
sights
that.
on that. So yeah, so it's just been a really amazing journey, and developing my artistic skills has probably been the biggest challenge. I have no art background whatsoever, so I tend to rely on my more math brain, if you will. I tend to work in symmetry and just repeating things that I can kind of grasp that.
Well, I love how you said that quilting kind of helped you run away from your children at a point. Sure, a lot of young mothers need a break. So
Yeah, even when you're with them, I can remember sitting at the park just being, board, like, we didn't have cell phones then, right? So, you just had to sit there, and I could just in my mind think about, okay, well, when they go down for their nap, I can sew this piece to that piece, and I can make that quilt block.
Those are excellent time management skills, I got to tell you. Well, about this work in particular, tell me a bit about the design process, putting it together, choosing the fabrics and colors. How did you put all that together to kind of reflect the theme that you wanted?
Well, this quilt, I think it's kind of groundbreaking in a sense. There's a technique that I came up with that I've never seen before. When I set out to make a quilt with holes in it, I started off thinking about cut work, and I've been fascinated with cut work for a long time, and I've been fascinated with quilts with holes in them for a long time. And the only way I could really think of to make a hole in a quilt was to cut a hole in fabric. And so that's sort of the traditional way of doing cut work. And the green border that you can see in behind us, if you can kind of see some sort of black, what looks like black circles and that sort of thing. I mean, that's done by cutting that green fabric. And there's actually some lace insertions in there as well. So that was limiting with my theme of the applique being the beauty. How would I get more than one color and fabric if I was just cutting holes in a solid piece of fabric? So through a process of trial and error, I realized that instead of making holes by subtraction, I could make holes by addition. There's my math brain again. But if you can imagine, what looks to you like piece of applique in the middle of the quilt, each of those shapes is actually its own little quilt, if you will. So it's an applique shape that's turned on the front, and there's a mirror image of it turned on the back, and there's a little piece of batting in between, and all those layers were sewn together by hand and joined to their neighbor. And so each piece was joined together piece by piece and ending up with the applique and no background at all. And I didn't know if it would work. I didn't know if it would hold together. I didn't know if it could hang. I didn't know if it could go to a show. I was just really making this quilt for me. And I was pretty delighted when I saw that it could hang and maybe it could travel. So yay.
Well, it was definitely one of the more interesting pieces that came through the office during the judging process. So I know you've mentioned that you've seen some of the other winter interviews we've done this year. And so, this question is coming. Kathy Wylie, if you had one quilting superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, I'd be tempted to say to stop time, or maybe turn back time, or something to do with having more time, it's just, I celebrated a milestone birthday this year, and it got me thinking, like, how many more quilts can there be, and what should they be, and how should I use the rest of the time I have, and all those kinds of deep questions. But yeah, I think that would be a turn back time or freeze time.
Well, happy 20th birthday to you. Let me tell you.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah, my third 20th birthday, as my son would say.
it's a milestone there. Well, Kathy, tell me what you're working on now.
Well, I started doing some pattern designing for fabric companies. So that's been super fun. I've loved doing that. So that kept me super busy this year, getting those patterns designed and written. And I've just sort of checked the last one off my list. So now I am just in the early stages of designing my next quilt for me. And I'm super excited about it, hoping to have it far enough along so that when I get to Houston, I can be picking up the right fabrics and threads and everything to go with it. But the theme of the next one is related to family ties. Both my sons got married this year. I have a new granddaughter. So I was just thinking about how all these families intertwine with each other. So I'm going to be playing with applique, of course, and maybe lots of knot work. And anyway, we'll see. Early stages, but I'm excited to see where it goes.
That sounds great. Well, Kathy, thank you for joining us once again. Congratulations. Kathy won the Grace Company Master Award for Traditional Artistry. Once again, that's a $5,000 prize sponsored by Grace Company for Beauty and the Broken. And I guess you're coming to Houston. So people will be able to meet you if you're hanging out by your quilt and then talk to you about it.
I hope so. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Anything in particular you're interested in doing while you're in Houston besides being at the quilt show?
Oh, well, I already know I'm not going to have enough time. So, um, I guess my priorities will be I have to see the show. I have to see all the quilts in the show because it's just such a source of inspiration. I mean, the best quilts and quilters from around the world have their quilts there, and it's, I think, really the show that got me going down this path of just realizing that quilts could be art and such a way of expressing ourselves. So we got to do that. I'm meeting my best quilting buddy at the show. So other priority number 2 is some girl time with my buddy. And then of course some shopping time. So I don't know if I can fit it all in and say hi to you guys when we're at the show, but I'll try my best.
I'll work on that superpower and you'll have the time to do it all.
That's right. That's what I need.
Kathy, again, thanks for joining us. And you can see this once again in Houston, November 2nd through 5th at International Quilt Festival. So thank you for joining us, Kathy.
Thanks, Bob.